project design. And Chair, yesterday, when we are looking at item number 2, we are told that UNRA spent 93 billion on salaries and funds. Now, which kind of staff are these who can exist for so many years, but they cannot do even a design of a road? We are seeing a lot of expenditures in billions being spent on projects, just designing. Now, what kind of staff does UNRA actually employ? I thought these are engineers, these are competent individuals with competent departments, which can save our funds and public resources on such minor items like design, which they are mandated to do. So, Chair, I just beg to understand from UNRA actually whether the people who are there are just dealers, they are brokers to contract others, but they are paid 93 billion, and actually the total was 98 billion. Chair, just to appreciate the English version of this audit report.
And votes. So when we are budgeting, the budget is multi-layered. There's the first layer, which you're going to say government of Uganda. You're going to come down to UNRA. No, government of Uganda, Minister of Works, UNRA Roads and Bridges. Roads and Bridges is works and there's supervision, but you can also have capacity building if you needed it. There's also an element of allowances under. So the budget is layered. Now the auditor took up to, I think, the third layer. Say, when you reach to UNRA, I say, I'm looking at the output area only. I'm not going down to the lower categories. But I'm saying when you go down the lower categories, this output area has different other subcategories. But our budget is picking on the supervision of projects. The other subcategories of capacity building are not catered for here. Thank you.
Spent on staff wages, the 93 billion. And when you look at the output, I'm seeing a mention of designing, then I'm seeing monitoring and capacity building. Now, are these the same? This money is paid to who? Is it paid to the same staff of UNRA? First of all, they are paid the salary under the other 93 billion. Then they also come and benefit out of these billions, maybe as per diem. No, I'm asking UNRA. Now, so Chair, I'm trying to bring this back. That I'm seeing monitoring and capacity building is almost on every project. Now, this one
Procedure,
is for,
Chair.
Now, it is this kind of...
Honorable Zari, let him finish, then we...
Yeah.
We are lost.
You check the audit report.
What is, I talk about, I see project, the output, and so is that what you're looking at?
Yes. Where? I'm looking at the project and output on page 6 and page 7 of the audit report. Because, and I started from page 5, and item 2 where there is a mention of the money paid on staff. I wanted to connect it to what I'm seeing here. I want a better understanding. A better understanding, because when you say you are spending on monitoring and capacity building, then also on project design, I want to appreciate this is spent on a hired agency, or it is spent on UNRA staff? And then what kind of staff does UNRA actually possess? Because if for every project you have to do capacity building, this capacity building is done to the entity contracted or within UNRA staff. No, I just want to appreciate.
With project costs. And I'm not sure, because when it comes to project costs, it is still ahead. 3.3, sorry, anyway. In the matrix we gave you 3.4, and we're going to come and explain that. When it talks about project costs there, we're talking about civil works and consultancy, supervision consultancy. So I'm not sure, I'm trying to understand, Honorable,
Yes.
whether you are asking whether we are doing design ourselves and then also paying for it under outputs,
Yes.
or whether we design projects at all, because then we have an answer.
Actually, I only refer to the wages just to bring the point across. But
okay.
the question is,
Yes.
under every project, there's capacity building and monitoring.
Yes.
There's also project design. And I'm saying this money is spent on the same staff of UNRA or spent on the on other consultants?
Okay, let's give you clarification then.
Chair, through ED, the document is looking at has project and outputs. In budgeting, we have the way the budget is coded. We have a project, and then we have what they call MTF, the medium-term framework expenditure. So it's a under output 5101, monitoring and capacity building support. This is an area where we pay supervision of projects from. So every project has a line for project supervision. Project supervision may be done by UNRA staff, and sometimes we hire firms to do the project supervision. Same MTF line also caters for capacity building, but it doesn't mean that every item catered for under the MTF line, UNRA budgeted for it. No, here the auditor picked out the output area. But when you go into the line expenditure, you're going to find that some of these lines have zero money, but the line for supervision of project has a budget. Thank you.
So just for clarity, because on the Auditor General's report, it's under item 3, implementation of the approved budget. Looks like for you, you pushed it ahead, yeah? So are you saying these elements that we see, monitoring, capacity building, and so on, that for many of them there's zero? Is that what you're saying?
Not the law. The laws are very clear, and the article you cited is very elaborate. That's subject to the laws of Uganda, the procurement laws of this country, the PPD Act, with all the guidelines and regulations they are under, are very clear on procurement procedures. Actually, when you look at the public procurement and disposal of public assets guidelines, the only exception you can talk about direct procurement would be in emergency situation. And the procedure is very elaborate within the law. Very elaborate within the law. What are emergency situations? But there is no mention within the law, the statutory books, be it the Constitution or the PPD Act or any regulation they are under, that warrant any entity, be it UNRA or any other entity, to transact following a directive of a president in total disregard of established laws and procedure. I beg Chair to disagree with the submission or from the witness, and also to substantiate the position of the law from what has been submitted by our honorable colleague. I beg to submit, Chair.
Okay, let me first listen the debate on this end.
Normally they come either from the State House or they're forwarded to us through our minister. And when these letters come to UNRA, they would have an instruction about requesting us to work with an entity on a specified project. I think one of the first things that normally is done is...
But then, when you come before a committee like this one that deals with the law and accountability issues, for us, we are going to say, show us the law that you followed to execute this directive. Yeah? Because, you see, ultimately, the problem might not even be with the directive. It is with the implementer, in my view. If somebody takes you to court tomorrow, and Titus is having to defend UNRA, you're not going to tell court that this was a directive from the executive. Court will ask you to quote the law. You get what I mean?
And honorable members, my name is Titus Kamya. Honorable Chair, to the extent possible, we follow or comply with the law, even when we receive the presidential directives. As the Director of Procurement has rightly explained, most of those will be handled under direct procurement, and there are parameters set therein to ensure that there is value for money. Section 85 of the PPD Act and the other regulations and sections in respect to that. Now, when
Council Titus, you're protected from your fellow lawyers on this end. think they think we are in court, so but please proceed.
Thank you. So once all the processes and clearance has been gotten from finance, as far as the financing requirements are concerned, the contract is taken to the Office of the Attorney General for clearance. He reviews it, again subject to the law, and then once it is cleared, then the
colleagues, can we first let these people respond? We are going to ask questions, yeah? But allow him to first explain, even when you don't agree with what he's saying, yeah? Because I'm also not saying I'm agreeing entirely with what he's saying, but I've given him chance to first explain his point of view. Then we can ask questions.
Yes.
Please go ahead, Councillor Titus.
So, under Article 119, the Attorney General is required to advise on any contract government is entering into over the value of 200 million shillings. And so once he has advised and cleared the contract, that we can proceed to enter into a contract with that contractor, then we proceed. That is how, Honorable Chair, we have tried to comply with the presidential directives.
Let me take you just 2 steps backwards. You quoted Section 85 of the PPDA.
Yes.
Is that the one that...
Procuring entities directly dealing with bidders within their reach or interested service providers within their reach. And even before you go to the law, someone will question, where do those particular companies pass to reach the president so that he directs? That is already double standard and selective consideration. The PPD Act was supposed to bridge that gap so that it provides for competitive bidding, evaluation, and we even have value for money. Otherwise, that is a breeding ground for corruption. So whoever can access the president, and different peddling, whoever can access the president will run to State House, say, I'm a mobilizer, I'm this, I need a contract in the billions of money. This also brings in the question whether actually the staff recruited by UNRA are actually competent staffs or papers or not. And Chair, through you, I will beg that we seek to establish the qualification of the other gentleman, I don't know his title within UNRA, and also the legal officer, to ascertain whether actually they are competent. However, back to the law, the Constitution is very clear. Whatever powers as may be, it is the supreme law of the land, and it provides an elaborate procedure on how transactions are done. I want to be on record, the cabinet papers we are talking about are not matters of law. They can only be processed into law via established legal procedures. And an entity like UNRA ought to follow procedures provided for within the PPD Act. Specifically, the section cited by the legal officer talks of exceptional circumstances, but again, when you look at the regulations and guidelines, the only circumstances we are seeing here, for example, emergency situation, is to do with where direct procurement can be done, also provided for, and there's an elaborate procedure. I didn't even hear you quoting it. Now, Chair, through you, I want to heavily disagree that there is no procedure, there is no law within there is no procedure within our laws that warrants UNRA to make such direct procurement following presidential directives. They are not law, and this Parliament has discussed it thoroughly. The courts of law have discussed it thoroughly. A directive can only be advisory, if any, but you must follow the due process of the law. When you quote the Attorney General, actually the Attorney General receives a contract when you have gone through the procurement process, among others. You are talking about the advice from the Attorney General and the contract. That is also a lie, and you are saying it knowingly to this committee. Because by the time you forward your contract, you have already selected a particular provider, and you are agreeing on the terms, among others. But Chair, what I want to put on record is there is a confession that they do procurement without following the procurement laws, following presidential directives, and we also need to get copies of such directives if they are there, because there is also another version that some of the directives are actually forged. Away from the illegality being committed, there might be also another additional illegality, that even the purported orders or directives are not existing. We also need to cross-examine the copies of the directive he followed to award the contracts, so that we can appreciate whether actually they exist and in what terms were they written or delivered to UNRA. But Chair, from the record and from the point of law, there is no procedure within our law that warrants UNRA to follow presidential directive in total disregard of the PPD Act and other regulations made thereunder. I beg to submit.